Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George, and you're listening to our review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with the boy Benny.
Hello.
Well, folks, here we are for the 9th Quentin Tarantino film to be released. 9 out of 10. What?
Well, he counts Kill Bill 1 and 2 as one film.
Oh.
He's constantly making little loopholes as to how he can extend his 10-movie career.
Okay, so maybe he's at number 8. Well, you're well picked up on there. Well picked up down there. And here we are for this film set in 1969 and a bit of a love letter to Hollywood, starring DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie. It's a stacked cast. We've been talking about this trailer a lot. Normally on these reviews, we go for a non-spoiler part of the review and then spoilers. But since it's been out for so long in the States and it's quite a difficult one to talk about, in a non-spoiler context, I think we should just blanket rule this is a spoiler review, full spoilers, no holds bar for our boy Tarantino. So, but let's just do what we normally do, and just like talk about the preamble, how you were feeling with this film, and the lead up to it, and also what's your relationship with Tarantino's filmography.
Yeah, cool. I had a weird relationship with Tarantino. I feel like when I haven't watched one of his movies in a while, I just get so much of his public persona and his own waffling on about how great his movies are and how wonderful he is. And I just get kind of tired of him very quickly.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember his movies as well as I might have initially regarded them. And then when I sit down and watch one of them, I'll just be like, this is fantastic. This is so damn good. I can see why this guy is, held in the regard he is. Just a couple of months ago, I watched Inglourious Basterds on the big screen. And it just blew me away. Like, I may not have even seen it since 2009 in the cinemas for the first time. I'm pretty sure I watched it on Blu-ray once, but it's never the same experience.
No.
And yeah, just seeing that again, I was like, and that is, or who knows, that was my favorite Quentin film. So yeah, then same thing. Watching the trailers for this one, I'm like, he's such a hard director to capture what's special about him in a trailer. And watching the trailers for this, I was like, this may as well just be 2 minutes of Quentin Tarantino has a new film coming, because that's all that matters. Because whatever you think of him, I don't know how you could present his film in a trailer that would, I don't know, change your opinion in any way or make you excited if you didn't like him before, or not excited if you're a huge fan.
This is a giant billboard.
Exactly. So I was just ready to get in there and watch it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I kind of know what you mean with Tarantino. And every time you chuck on the film, there's so much that you've forgotten about, and they're very layered. And every time you finish a Tarantino film, I kick back and sort of have to kind of digest it and talk about it with somebody. He has so much knowledge of film and so much love for cinema. The attention to detail is just quite glorious, and he's a true treasure of our generation. You can say what you will outside of, he's a bit Tarantino is a bit of an arse as a human being or whatever. But in terms of creativity, he is absolutely one of the best of the best. So, I remember the first time I saw Inglourious Basterds on the cinema, I loved it so much. I was incredibly excited for this, more so than The Hateful Eight, which is the only Tarantino film I haven't seen. So there was just something about this that was connecting with me a little bit more. But I do agree with you. The trailers weren't exactly strong. The magic of Tarantino is in the full picture.
Yeah, I mean, he's so he really takes his time with his films. So to cut that down to a 2-minute kind of thing doesn't really capture them. I also just want to say overall, even when I do love his films, I often struggle to find the meaning in them. Necessarily, I think there's no one more entertaining as a filmmaker than him. But I
think that is the meaning in a way, is entertainment.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
It's just the love of the medium of film.
That's the thing. I got to stop myself sometimes and be like, maybe there's not necessarily all these other levels to this. And I'm so used to trying to read a lot into movies, and sometimes I can take you down a weird path with his films, because he gets a lot of criticisms of extreme violence and misogyny and stuff. And they're easy to read into his movies. His use of the N word and everything. So I don't know. Maybe with this, I wanted to just kind of be like, let's just watch this as a movie first, and then see where it takes me.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean with him. So we're into spoilers. Turn your televisuals off. Turn your podcast visuals off if you have not seen this, because this is one to go in blind. Tough to know where to start with this, but I think really off the top, like I just got so much of a kick out of DiCaprio and Brad Pitt's chemistry on screen together.
Yep.
Just that relationship, like them as individual characters, they were awesome as well. But just literally just talking about their on-screen chemistry and their relationship, I love that so much. And the way Brad Pitt was effectively Leonardo DiCaprio's stuntman in real life, he was always propping him up. He was always telling him he was the man. He was the stuntman off screen and on screen. And he was never the one being celebrated. It was always DiCaprio. He lived in the nice house. He reaped the rewards, but DiCaprio always he reaped the rewards, but Brad Pitt was always there to support him through thick and thin, right until the end, where he basically takes one for he gets fucked up. He gets a knife in the leg, and DiCaprio's the hero there with the flamethrower. I thought that was a really interesting way to show their relationship, and he wasn't getting fucked over either. He was willingly participating in this relationship.
Yeah, it was really fun watching them together. Both of them, performance-wise, are like career best.
I'd agree, man.
Brad Pitt has had some great characters over the years. Tyler Durden, the Pikey from Snatch. Benjamin Button. No. But yeah, this is as good as he has ever been. And DiCaprio, I've never been like the biggest fan of. I don't know. I've just never really followed his career too closely. But I've never found him as watchable as in this. He imbued the character with so much more humanity than definitely got in the trailer, where he just looks like DiCaprio playing a movie star.
Yeah.
He had that interesting kind of vocal tick. He almost had like a stutter, but like more subtle than that. That just really, I don't know, spoke to his just state of being. It was so cool.
It felt like one of the few DiCaprio characters that was. I wasn't watching Leonardo DiCaprio. I was watching Rick Dalton.
Yeah,
and I feel like that character is one of the most well realized fictional characters that have been put to screen that I felt was so real. I felt like I knew this guy. He had flaws. I knew like his insecurities. I knew what was driving him. I haven't seen all these Marvel films that we froth over, they're so one-dimensional when you compare it to this.
Yeah.
And that is part of the genre, but it was just so refreshing to get that.
Yeah, there was more than just like at its best, these kind of blockbuster characters have, an arc, and even a well-realized one is a fairly simple trajectory. Rick Dalton was all over the place. Apparently, he's based on Burt Reynolds to a large degree, and a lot of other people. And Burt Reynolds' relationship with someone else in Hollywood,
and Clint Eastwood as well. I've heard, because he went over to do the spaghetti westerns.
Cool. But apparently, Rick Dalton is supposedly bipolar as well. And like I said, ups and downs are all it's not a character as much as it is a human being.
Yeah.
Which was just glorious to watch.
It was so well done, man. Yeah. I think that those are career best performances from those guys.
Yeah. So I will say all praise to them. Maybe on not a negative of the film, but something people should know is that those two are the leads, and they are the only leads.
Yes.
Those are the two lead characters, two lead actors. Everyone else is kind of a footnote in the film to one degree or another. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we can definitely talk about Margot Robbie's stuff. I would like to stay a little bit more on these guys just for a minute.
Yeah.
Particularly Brad Pitt. And I think there's a really interesting theme and something going on with that character. This film is almost, and sorry if I'm jumping the gun here on themes and this review, but there seems to be a theme of renewal and becoming obsolete.
Definitely.
And Brad Pitt's character in this is the hunky guy. He's the stunt man. He's physical. He drives this car fast. And the girls batter their eyelids at him. He's kind of like the representation of that James Dean old, cool guy smoking cigarettes.
He's a goddamn cowboy.
And then what we're getting here is like almost like the hippie movement coming in of the 70s, taking over and making the 60s obsolete and making, Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters obsolete. And then at the end, you get this scene where Brad Pitt fucks up all these hippies, and it's almost like Tarantino's like he's representing his love of that old through Brad Pitt's character is a vehicle for that. Did you see anything in there with that particular kind of?
Yeah, 100%. Tarantino's been open about some of his intentions here, which is to a large degree he feels that the Manson family murders were what ended that era of Hollywood. Because Sharon Tate represents this beautiful youthful optimism and creativity that just got snuffed out so horribly by the real world, and that bled into the 70s just being this much darker time for film. And he, as someone who idolizes that prior world, wanted to create a vision of history that would allow it to live on indefinitely, maybe.
That's fascinating, man. Because okay, so maybe we can move on to the Margot Robbie, Sharon Tate, which was really interestingly handled, and kept me guess, because I thought like I knew where this was going. Like the final sequence here is going to be the murder sequence.
So that is what hangs over the entire film and colors your perception of pretty much everything that's happening. Because whether or not you've heard about, there's a controversial ending, or, Tarantino goes crazy with this ending, you just, if you have the slightest knowledge of Sharon Tate and her fate, which is required reading for this film.
It is.
Then you know that this movie is heading towards, if not that, then something around that. And that made the entire movie so tense and melancholic for me, because you're watching this very happy young woman living her wonderful life, and just everything. It's only a small part of the film, but everything in the movie is orbiting around it.
Yep.
And it's all coming to a head. Leonardo DiCaprio is her neighbor in the film, and I found everything leading up to what they actually do with that scene at the end to be so scary, because being a Tarantino movie, that anything could happen at any time, and he's not afraid to do something absolutely horrific. And when all is said and done, this is actually probably the happiest ending that he's ever had.
Yeah.
Probably the least. Definitely the smallest body count in terms of characters you're actually attached to or like.
There was a point in this movie where I think I said to you in the movie, I was like, this could be, or maybe it was afterwards, like this could be Tarantino's first family-friendly movie, bar two little scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've also watched it twice, and what I found so interesting was, so there's a scene where Brad Pitt goes to the Spahn Ranch.
Yeah.
Where the hippies are all shacked up. And the first time watching that, I was so incredibly, like, it's my masterclass in tension, because he's just going into this spider's web, and just more and more of these hippies who we know to be eventual murderers, horrific murderers, are just kind of surrounding him. And then it kind of diffuses, but it doesn't diffuse the tension. It just like prolongs it, because nothing is dealt with. He just kind of leaves, and it's like, wow, that was close. And then
you think he's going to be dead? You think that guy's going to be dead? I thought
that was it for him. Yeah. And then it gets to the end of the movie,
sorry, yeah, you keep going.
Well, so it's just because I think that leads, after a fact, into the end of the movie where Brad Pitt gets confronted on the night of these murders, and first time watching it, I'm like terrified. And the scene was, I've never had so many reactions to a scene at once, and I mean at once, like just hilarity and shock and being terrified, and it was like this just orgiastic fucking bloodletting. But then watching it the second time, that initial ranch scene is still really interesting and tense, but then the later scene it's completely different because you've got these like slapstick idiots coming to take on the guy who kicked the shit out of Bruce Lee, and it's like this was only ever going to go this way, and but it's still this amazing scene to watch.
Yeah, the second time through was very, very interesting. I want to circle back to the idea. We were talking about the Margot Robbie, the Sharon Tate, the Manson family, and Tarantino doing a change to that narrative. And the change is the fact that Rick Dalton lived next door to Sharon Tate, and him being there changed the whole scenario. I'm really intrigued by this Tarantino revisionist history that he's got going on in the back half of his career. And it's become now, after this, I feel like a cornerstone sort of technique or theme of his. I thought it was the first time I saw that and the credits came up and Sharon Tate was fine. It was so confusing in a way, but delightful in another, because I felt from the limited time we saw Margot Robbie on screen, I felt so happy that this girl got to live in this fantasy. You know, she got to live. Yeah. And it was really weird, man, because it's a fantasy, so it's not true, but it felt like it was almost like a cathartic way of Quentin Tarantino kind of sending out this energy to the world.
And it's a reclamation of sorts, bringing her back from the murder victim that history has only ever seen her as since then to being totally not a well-defined character, but a human being, at least in this narrative, who, went on to have something else.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people criticize the film in that, she's not a character, she's barely in it. She's, essentially a narrative prop, which, is valid. But I don't know, the way that the real life events kind of make you feel in that whole ending sequence is unlike anything I think I've ever experienced in a cinema. Even when Tarantino blew the shit out of Hitler, I remember almost jumping out of my seat being like, holy shit. Yeah. But this was something else entirely. The way that it set it up for the whole film,
Yeah. So I initially did have a few criticisms when the film was playing out the first time. I was like, I mean, Margot Robbie, she's absolutely gorgeous, and she's strutting around in her boots and her hot pants. And I'm like, I want to see more of this character. I know what Margot Robbie's capable of. And I think when we got to the cinema sequences and we saw those bits, she was able to convey so much through no dialogue. And I felt like, okay, we got we rounded out this character a little bit.
Really acting with her feet.
Foot fetish people, line up, mate, line up.
Yeah.
But so there was a part of me where I was like, teetering on like, oh, okay, Tarantino, like, can you just get this shit together? And I felt like, okay, we got something not meaty from that character, but it felt like she wasn't just the Barbie doll of the piece.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. And then to kind of get that ending, it made that component of the film, that red herring, in a way, feel more meaty. Like it felt like that story was just running in parallel, and it kind of she's going to die at the end, and then once it all said and done, and when the second time I watched it, I appreciated those scenes a lot more. Yeah, and I understood what he was trying to do a little bit more.
Yeah, I watched it twice on the first day, 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. and I definitely enjoyed it the first time, but the second time I loved it.
But that crowd was amazing.
It's always good to see something, especially something like this with a big crowd.
800 people in the cinema, and everyone was laughing at the right times.
Yeah,
which the second time I saw it, they weren't.
Oh yeah,
it was not as packed of a cinema, and it just wasn't as enjoyable. I love the film still, but I enjoyed the first screening more.
Yeah, I've been working as a projectionist on this film. And I always make sure to be in there for certain parts, especially, that last 20 minutes. And watching that with a big audience is something very special.
So you're threading the celluloid through?
Yeah, yep.
Hell yeah, man.
I've only burnt one hole in the in the print.
Keep it at one and we're all good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is like, where are there any other things that stood out to you here, or was there any other?
Well, let's maybe recharge for a second. Let's talk about the technical aspects of the film, because I know you've got a lot to say about that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
director of photography Robert Richardson.
Future director of Venom. Whoa. Well done, Robert. You made it to the big leagues. I'm kidding. This just looked so on point. I mean, Tarantino shoots on film, so it's got that extra level of dimension to it. And there's some shots later on in this film that are pretty damn dark. And I know a lot of digital cameras would not be able to handle that kind of dynamic range. But anyway, listen, in terms of cinematography, production design, this is one of the best Tarantino films, I would say.
It's an epic in terms of production design. Like they kitted out half of LA to make it look like the 60s. And you don't doubt it for a second.
And I don't feel like he shoves it in your face too much. Like there's only a few little bits in there.
Well, a lot of people are taking issue with how much just driving around is in this movie, which didn't occur to me at all. I thought every part of that was imbued with character in both the human characters and the landscape. And I saw a shot of behind the scenes today that was Brad Pitt's car and the rig that was outfitted around it. Okay. So he could literally just be driving around and it would be filming him.
Oh, right.
And I'd never seen anything like that before. I'm used to seeing like, a car towing another car and there'll be
it's attached to a trailer or something.
Yeah, but no, he was just driving around with this awesome little rig attached.
That's killer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could see that in the film.
Yeah.
I like the rickety nature of it. Like one of the first shots, you're in the car and it's swaying around. It felt so part of the DNA of the film.
Yeah, it's so wanky to say, but like, man, Tarantino really is just a filmmaker. Like, there's not a moment in this movie that's like a green screen or something. Like, they're just driving around, and there should be, because he's making a movie set 50 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. It's good stuff.
And the score was awesome. I had to listen to the soundtrack.
The soundtrack, yeah.
Great choices.
Yeah, nothing that felt out of place or too on the nose or anything. It was just, or distracting in the ways that maybe his soundtrack picks sometimes can be. It was just like throughout the film, kind of nonstop, and it was all really good stuff.
I saw this with my parents the second time, and my mum loved this movie.
That's cool.
She then went on this. She's like the first time she's ever gone like on a movie review tirade. Just like started researching. I'm like, welcome to my world, mum. So she told me a really interesting fact about, or a little, Easter egg about this soundtrack, that there's a cover of a Rolling Stones track on here called Out of Time. And it's got Mick Jagger's re-recorded vocals from 1975. Now, this film's set in 1969. So it's quite literally out of time.
Nice.
And it's just such a Tarantino thing to do. And it just really shows his level of attention to detail, his knowledge of cinema, his kind of postmodern 4D breaking the fourth wall thing that he does. I thought that was just so dope.
It's a brilliant moment as well, because it's the beginning of the third act, and it's just showing Sharon Tate, and it's showing like all of LA kind of lighting up for the night, this night, the infamous night. And it's, of course, Mick Jagger singing Baby You're Out of Time. And it's just really sinking in subconsciously or consciously that, like, this is happening.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it all goes a different direction. But
just so good.
Yeah.
Did you? I think also what I loved about this was DiCaprio. I mean, we're going back to characters now, so sorry, stream of consciousness here, I guess. But DiCaprio's this film's a love letter to Hollywood, and it's a love letter to the ups and the downs of a career as well. And I loved the scenes where I feel like DiCaprio was really drawing upon some personal experiences, like the trailer scene. You saw that in the trailer, but him just freaking out and then going back on set, having the lowest low, being sort of like not ridiculed on set, but embarrassed on set.
Mm.
And then to come in, nail a performance, and have your peers congratulate you and inspire them,
Mm.
you know, within the space of half an hour.
Mm.
And it sort of showed you what you have to put on the line as an actor, and this line of work, and as I said, the roller coaster ride
Mm.
that it is. And I thought that was once again just a nice theme and element to the film.
Yeah, I definitely find the comparisons to Tarantino himself hard to understand personally, because he feels like a guy who's never had a down. Like, I feel like even when Death Proof came along, it just sort of came and went. I don't really remember the time.
No,
but
it didn't get vilified.
yeah, like Tarantino doesn't seem like a guy who's doubted himself for a second. And, you know, this could be him admitting otherwise. I don't know. But just looking at him in more of a public sense, he you know, he seems very happy with how his career
He
is
could
going.
even be drawing upon, you know, his friends that
Mm.
are actors and seeing their experience.
Mm.
But there is that element of the whole film being a parallel to his career as well.
Yeah.
And then you had the sequences at the end with the spaghetti western. What, like, that really fascinated me because you know, Kurt Russell's narration comes in, and you didn't see anything really. You just saw a few scenes, and then he's back in LA. Like, the fascination to me of it is that any other filmmaker, I would feel like that's lazy and tacked on.
Mm.
Tarantino, though, he does it in a creative, interesting way. I'm in.
He's the guy, man. He's the one who can do whatever he wants and get away with it. I remember watching earlier in the film when they go to the Playboy Mansion, and just this text comes up on screen with arrows pointing at people saying who they are, the real life figures they are.
Steve McQueen and whatnot.
And it's like, fuck it, why not? Like, why not play to the strength of the medium you're using, where you can just put something visually up on screen? Like, why is that wrong? Like, it's not, you know, neat, but would it have been better to have someone just say their names as if they didn't already know them or something?
That's so true.
Yeah, and then, you know, structurally, it is weird because this movie takes place across like 2 days. Then there's a 6-month time skip that's just all exposition from narration, and then there's like another day. But he makes it work flawlessly, I feel.
It's quite incredible, man.
Yeah, like you should not be able to have like a 15-minute Kurt Russell dialogue that just explains everything that happens for 6 months right before the end of the movie.
And then you're into the murder sequence. But it felt organic. It worked.
It just felt like Tarantino. When you're watching a Tarantino film, you know you're watching a Tarantino film. And I feel like that, as much as like knowing that you're watching a movie leading up to the Tate murder, that plays into your experience of it as well.
Completely.
Because like what I was saying before of, you know, the kind of dread I had for some of the characters, that was because I was watching a Tarantino movie, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We should definitely talk about the final sequence, but I'd also like to talk about another little sequence that I got a huge kick out of, which was Brad Pitt on the roof.
Of course, yeah.
You know, he's a spunk. Look at those washboard abs. You don't want to talk.
55 years old.
Incredible. Anyway, he's a specimen. But that flashback within a flashback, that was so well done.
So yeah, the running thing about his character is that he killed his wife. Everyone seems to know he killed his wife and got away with it. So he's up on the roof. There's a flashback to him, a scene that involves him fighting Bruce Lee on the set of the Green Hornet. And within that, they flash back to him on a boat with his wife, presumably when he killed her, if he killed her. And there's just so little information presented there. It is so deft. It's just him sitting there with a beer and a harpoon gun, and
her just
his
slamming
wife just
him.
railing on him.
Yeah.
And he's like got it pointed towards her, and then it just cuts. It's like, okay.
I think I know what happens, but I don't
But
fully
yeah,
know what happens.
We really don't. And yeah, that I want to talk about this more later, but that leads into the thing I was saying about my search for meaning with Tarantino films, because I don't know what that means. I don't know what the character is meant to be, other than the most extreme badass ex-military guy who killed his wife and got away with it. I don't know. Does that represent something? Is that meant to say something broader?
It could mean, you know, as I said, I definitely think there's he's a representation of the cool guy, the James Dean, and you know, maybe there's even, you know, I might be looking into it too much, but there could be a, accountability thing with the Harvey Weinstein being totally, this was a bygone era where you could get away with shit more.
Mm.
And nowadays, if you fuck out, you're done.
Yeah, well, that's where I get caught up with this film because I absolutely love it, and the home invasion scene at the end is my favorite piece of filmmaking all year, maybe all few years. But I don't want to read too much into it because I don't know where it goes exactly. Because the very clear implication at the end, whether this is what he's going for or not, surely it's not, but is if there was a good old fashioned American badass cowboy there on the night of the Tate murders, those hippies would have got fucked up and everyone would have been fine.
I think that's what he's saying in a way.
Fuck, man.
I do think that's what he's saying.
That's difficult. That's weird stuff. Because this is a character who, from what we're presented in the film with, is a fucking sociopath who killed his wife. But he's also the coolest guy ever.
But I'm going off memory now, so I could be wrong, but I've never seen Tarantino really tackle hippies before.
Mm.
And I've never seen him show any kind of love for hippies. And I don't think in this he shows any love for hippies. He makes hippies look like dreadful Charles. That's the broader implication, is that he's saying all hippies are like this. Listen, let's not go down that path. That's irrelevant to this. Do you think that, like, within that theme, do you think he's making a statement on something, or do you think
that's why I don't want to pull that thread, because I don't know, and that's what I'm talking about. Tarantino being, the most entertaining filmmaker maybe that we have, but I don't know what he means with what he's putting on screen. I was watching an interview with him from, God, it could have been the 90s. It was just him on TV on one of those like shows that was trying to condemn movie violence and saying, he was destroying society and stuff.
Yeah.
And this woman was just
that one, the classic one.
Yeah, it's like, why are you doing this? It's because it's so damn fun, Janet, or whatever her name is. And it's like, maybe that is all it is to him.
I think it is, man.
Yeah, and that's fine on its own. Because like I said, as a piece of filmmaking, absolutely mind-blowing. I was jumping out of my seat and squealing like I haven't done since I was a little girl.
I think you're right, man. I think it's like a sandbox for him. It's like they're little Lego pieces, and the camera, the actors, the sets, they're all little components of his ultimate vision of fun, which is creating cinema and his interpretation of cinema.
Because even the quite, maligned, divisive Bruce Lee scene, was he trying to disparage Bruce Lee with that scene? Because Bruce Lee comes off as a dickhead in that scene. Absolutely.
And Tarantino defended that. That
by
decision.
saying that it's
Bruce
accurate.
Lee, Bruce, yeah. And I would tend to, I haven't done my research, but my gut instinct would say Tarantino would have done the homework.
Yeah, and look, my take on the scene is that while Bruce Lee kind of looked like a douche, he seemed like a human being, which I thought was kind of cool because he's so mythologized in history. He's like this ethereal being.
Yeah.
And we don't need to get into the mystification of Asian people, but I thought it was kind of cool. But definitely, I can imagine, like, if you were his daughter, as she did, come out and be like, "Come on, man, really?"
Yeah, I think it was his granddaughter. But I have a few issues with that scene, but I'm not quite sure what they are. I think the main thing was like Brad Pitt beating him in that second round so easily. This is one of the best martial artists of all time. Are we going with the fact that Brad Pitt is just that strong? Like, that's just the character, and that's how it was written.
Yeah. Well, no, I think,
but it props up. I think it props up Brad Pitt too much, and it brings down Bruce Lee. In saying that, though, there is an interesting component where it's like Bruce Lee was a real dude, and he wouldn't have gone beaten by other people.
Yeah.
He was a movie star. He wasn't I'm sure he competed a lot in martial arts, but he was dedicated to be an entertainer,
Yeah, so it is complex. And the defense that some people have brought out, I think Mike Moe, the actor who played Bruce Lee, has said, they never finished the fight. Like, they had 1 point each in a best 2 out of 3.
Yeah, totally.
So when whatever what does that actually mean? But
Good on you, Mike.
yeah, I think that is the point. Watching it the second time, I'm like, oh yeah, this is foreshadowing that the ending of this movie is of course going to go Bruce Lee's way. I mean, sorry, Brad Pitt's way, because he beat Bruce Lee. Like, how could you possibly, like, in terms of movie language, what is the way you could show someone is more powerful than fucking anyone in the world?
It adheres to its
in the
own
Marvel
rules.
universe, you haven't beat up Thanos.
Yeah.
In a real world setting, you haven't beat up Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Yeah, it adheres to its own rule set.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that.
Yeah, because when you watch that last scene, he is pretty much superhuman.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Let's talk about that last scene. He smokes that LSD cigarette. Bad news. But that was, who are you? I'm a donut or whatever. And then he brings out the
I'm
pistol.
as real as a donut, motherfucker.
Fuck, man. It was on point. And then the level of fun, like, I've never seen, sometimes sometimes I like pick up like a, I don't know, a tape, a sticky tape thing. And I'm like, imagine smacking somebody over the head with this. And
that's why we sent you to therapy.
Yeah. And then you see him throw a can of dog food at this girl's face. And it does so much damage. That's how it would go down. And I've never seen that before.
Yeah. And it's so effectively shot and executed because I've really studied the scene, and when you get a look at her face, it's not as fucked up as you picture it being because of how visceral the editing and the execution is. Yeah. It's amazing. Like every second of that, it's only like a 5-minute stretch. It feels so much longer. And every second of it is so amazingly put together. I can picture it all in my head. Just when Tex comes at him with the knife and the little step forward he takes and to grab, it's like half a second. And it's so amazingly well done.
There's something really interesting, like the technicality of the scene and the fun. It's just everything that I'd want. And it was a full-blown level of like catharsicism with this, as we were talking about before, the tension that was running over this film with the Sharon Tate stuff. What's so interesting thing about this though is that, with these hippies, right? Let's say you don't know about the Sharon Tate and the Charles Manson stuff, you take it on this note, like these hippies are going to go murder. They're going to murder everyone in this house. So they're the bad guys, quote unquote. And, you have that scene of the girl in the back of the car and she's like, we should kill everyone, man. Like they're definitively the bad guys, but they get absolutely fucked up in this. And it's almost kind of like, without knowing that Sharon Tate stuff, it's almost like, holy fuck, whoa. I mean, they were obviously going to murder everyone and they deserved that and blah, 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 but that was huge. But when you watch it knowing the Sharon Tate stuff is in there, it's so much more impactful. There's so much more catharsis and a sense of release, and like those guys are getting their due.
It's revenge, yeah.
But there's no revenge in this film. So it's so interesting.
In the world of the film, you mean because they hadn't done anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're knowing what happened in reality.
Yeah.
That makes it so much, it adds so much.
Yeah.
And that for me is a really, you could watch this without knowing that, do a bit of research, come back to it and get a whole other new viewing of it. And that for me is just, I just love intertextuality, and it's not intertextuality because it's real life, but I love those sort of levels of detail and wider reading that you get in Tarantino.
If anyone out there listening did watch this movie without knowing anything about that, I would love to know what it was like, because it would come so out of nowhere.
We watched it with a few people, and they didn't know about the Sharon Tate stuff, and they were a little bit confused.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it, like I said, required reading. It is so integral to everything this movie is about.
It's hard for me to even like. I remember when Ash told me that, I was kind of like, we've been talking about this movie for the best part of 2 years, knowing this is in. It's so there's so yeah. Of course, Sharon Tate's in it. Like, how did you not know that? How did you not do a bit of reading beforehand?
We're so removed from the regular person.
I know. It's so weird.
That's why I can't speak to anyone anymore.
Yeah.
I don't talk outside of this
for the
room.
best. It's for the best. Yeah. Is there anything else to chat about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I don't know.
I
liked it.
Yeah. I think more we've talked more about the spoilery aspects, but your impressions of the film from more of a review aspect or less of a discussion point. where does this hit in your Tarantino rankings?
Easy number 2, possible tie for 1 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm very fond of it right
And
now.
number 1 is Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
And number 2 is Kill Bill.
Geez, honestly, it kind of blends together for me. Kill Bill 1 and 2, Pulp Fiction, definitely right up there.
Yeah.
Django, I like a lot as well.
Yeah. See, Django for me is a mid-tier.
Slows down a lot at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that this one's definitely could be number 3. I love Jackie Brown. That's so uncelebrated. But in terms of like an overall sort of review of this film, I think this is essential viewing for anyone in 2019.
100%.
No, like if you haven't been in the cinema for 2 years, this is the perfect excuse to get your ass back in that seat.
Watch it in cinema, watch it on film. The pure strength of the characters, combined with what honestly really pushed this over the level for me, which is the last 20 minutes, just like makes it must see.
Yeah, it is a must see. I cannot tell you how much I felt like I could sit down and have a beer with Rick Dalton.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a fully formed 3D character and something that I just got such a really just enjoyable and makes me realize why I love movies so much. And then,
And there's a very good chance, that you will hate, if not the entire film, elements of it, maybe a lot of elements of it, but you will think about it and you will have a discussion about it.
You will,
and
definitely.
that makes it essential viewing alone.
Definitely. And I often don't recommend movies that I like to my parents. And when I do and they enjoy it, it's all I'm like, good one, Georgie boy.
This shit's 4/4.
Yeah. So and then I hung out with them and to have a chat with them and to see how fired up they were. It was just like, this is really cool, man. This is like a generational film. It's not just catered for one audience. It's for everyone. So yeah.
This would have been a great one for him to go out on. If he were counting this as his 10th.
Oh, why didn't he?
Well, because he doesn't want to. He wants to keep making movies.
Tarantino, man.
And his last one's going to be Star Trek.
Hope it's good. All right, guys. Well, that's our review for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. All spoilers there. What did you think of the film? Let us know your favorite parts, and did you have any issues with the film? We've been very, very, very positive on this. So let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll be back next week for D23. It's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And Connor's going to be back, and yeah, everything's looking up.
I'll have to get out of his seat.
Yeah.
Unless you want to sit on me, Connor.
I'm sure he will. He's small enough. Tiddly-dee. All right. That was fun, Benny.
Yep.
See you next week.
See you, Jody.
See you.